On a cool fall evening, as the leaves swirled in the crisp air, I wandered around the house, immersed in thoughts of laughter and shared dreams. I had intended to return early, but plans with friends had fallen through, and I felt an unexpected loneliness. As I approached the house, I thought something was wrong. The familiar comfort of the house was shrouded in an unsettling silence that made my heart ache. My father, Robert, was away on a business trip, and my mother, Jennifer, was supposed to be at book club, a weekly ritual she treasured. But when I opened the door, the sight of her car still parked in the driveway gave me goosebumps. I planned to run to my room, but then I heard soft laughter echoing through the house, intimate and warm, drawing me closer like a melody I couldn't resist. My stomach twisted. There, in the soft glow of the lamp, sat my mother with a man who was definitely not my father. They sat too close together on the couch, and her laughter mingled with his, making waves of confusion come over me. His hand rested gently on her knee, and joy sparkled in her eyes, a joy that seemed foreign at that moment. The world around me faded, and I froze like a silent observer on a stage that shattered my reality. My mother, the woman I trusted more than anyone else, was lost in a moment of caressing another man. It was like a nightmare, my mind unable to comprehend the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. My heart pounded frantically. The air thickened with the weight of secrets, but I remained blank, paralyzed by shock and disbelief. With my heart pounding, I turned and slipped out of the house, my mind in chaos. What would I do with this knowledge? As I walked down the street, the world seemed altered, tainted by the truth I had stumbled upon. Should I confront her? Should I tell my father? All thoughts swirled in my head in a whirlwind of uncertainty. Sleep did not come to me that night. I lay in bed, haunted by the image of my mother and that man, and replayed the moment over and over again. The woman who had always been my support now seemed like a stranger to me. The pain in my chest intensified, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my world. The next day, I put on a mask of normality, but every time I looked at my mother, my stomach twisted into knots. She moved around the house as if nothing had changed, her laughter echoing in the hallway like a ghostly melody. I wanted to scream, to tell her what I'd seen, but the thought terrified me. I needed to know the truth, who this man was, how long this had been going on. My resolve grew firmer. I would find out for myself. While she was distracted, I slipped into her room and began rummaging through her things. My heart pounded frantically as I searched, desperately looking for answers. What I found shocked me. Messages, dozens of messages filled with longing and love, all from the same person. My heart sank as I flipped through them, and each message stabbed a dagger into my heart. It wasn't a fleeting moment. It was a web of deceit that entangled us all. Anger and sadness fought within me as I realized that the mother I idolized was living a lie. I felt caught between two worlds, one where I could protect my father's heart and one where I could confront my mother and demand answers. The burden of my knowledge seemed suffocating, and every decision hung over my head like a dark cloud. The days passed like a blur. My mother went about her business, unaware of the storm raging inside me. Every time my father kissed her, unaware of the betrayal, I felt a deeper sense of guilt. The facade of our family was crumbling, and I found myself in the middle of it, unable to tell the truth lest I tear it all apart. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the windows, I found my father at the kitchen table, flipping through old photo albums. The laughter in the room was a cruel reminder of the love and joy we once shared. My heart snapped when I saw him smiling as he looked through pictures of our family vacations and birthdays, capturing happiness that now seemed out of reach. It was then that I realized I couldn't stay silent any longer. He deserved the truth, no matter how painful it was. With trembling hands, I approached him. "Dad, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, and the weight of my revelation hanging in the air. As the words hung between us, I braced myself for the fact that this was going to change our lives forever. The world outside the window darkened, and in that moment, I realized that love can be both beautiful and destructive at the same time, intertwining in such a way that our hearts must pursue the truth, no matter the cost. The silence that followed was stifling, and I saw the confusion in his eyes when he looked up at me. His smile faded, and there was concern in his features. I knew I had to find the courage to continue, even though every fiber of my being was screaming to run away. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he asked softly, his voice filled with the warmth I'd always known. My heart ached at the thought that what I was about to say could ruin that warmth. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my trembling hands. "It's about Mom," I managed to say, clutching my throat. He leaned forward, frowning his eyebrows, and I could see the worry growing in his eyes. I could feel the weight of the words I was about to say, pressing down on me, becoming almost unbearable. My heart was pounding so loudly that I wondered if he could hear it too. I hesitated, tears coming to my eyes as I thought of the devastation this truth would bring. His expression changed. Fear flashed across his face. "What about your mom?" he asked, his voice barely audible. I could see he was preparing himself for what I was about to tell him. My heart clenched with pain for him, for the innocence that would be lost in the next few moments. I looked at the table, at the old photo album spread between us, filled with memories that suddenly seemed to belong to another life. "I saw her," I whispered, my voice trailing off. "I saw her with another man." The words hung in the air, heavy and choking, and I saw the color drain from his face. His eyes widened, and for a moment it felt like time had stopped. The room seemed too small, and the air too dense. I watched as the realization came over him, and his shoulders slumped under its weight. He looked away, his eyes clouded with pain, and I felt my heart shatter again. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice shaking. There was desperation in his eyes, pleading for me to tell him it wasn't true. But I couldn't lie. I nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks as I watched the man I'd always thought was strong and indestructible crumble before my eyes. He sighed heavily, his hands shaking as he closed the photo album. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with the weight of everything unspoken. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he finally asked, his voice trailing off. I heard the pain in his words, and it pierced me like a knife. I wanted to explain, to tell him about the fear and confusion that kept me silent, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was sit there, tears streaming down my face as the reality of what I had done settled in my head. I had shattered his world, and there was no going back. He slowly stood up, his movements stilted and mechanical, as if he was trying to hold himself together. "Thank you for telling me," he said in a voice barely above a whisper. He turned away. His shoulders slumped, and I could see the pain etched in every line of his body. I wanted to reach out to comfort him, but I knew there was nothing I could say to ease the situation. The truth had torn us apart, and now only the consequences remained. As he walked away, I felt an emptiness in my chest, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on me. I knew that our family would never be the same, that the love and warmth we once shared had been irreparably damaged. But in that moment, I also realized that the truth, as painful as it was, had to come out. Love can be both beautiful and destructive, and sometimes the only way to move forward is to face the darkness head on, no matter what it takes.